to the Democratic Party Terry Platt.
Contempt of Parliament means that they kept information from the public. They lied about what they were doing. And then when they were caught on their lies, they said, oh, no, we don't want to talk about it. It's an awful thing. And during this entire campaign, when asked about this question, and I'm not going to attack anybody, during this entire campaign, when asked about this question, the Conservative candidates say, it's not our fault, it's the Liberals, it's the New Democrats, it's the Bloc. They conspired against us, they are going to form a coalition. Quick, it's not our fault, it's their fault. They forced an unnecessary election. This unnecessary election is their punishment from the people of Canada. And like little kids who say, it's not my fault, I didn't do it, so stand the Conservatives and what they're saying. We would not do this. We would not put ourselves in a position where we would be accused of contempt of Parliament. And it's time that Canadians stood up and said, we don't like what you're doing. Fix it or go away. Thank you.
Well, Terry, it's true. The Speaker said that he didn't like what the Conservative government was doing, and therefore more budget information ought to be provided. The information was provided, but by the time it was provided, the issue had moved to the Parliamentary Affairs Committee, where there is a majority of opposition members. The result was a foregone conclusion because we heard months before that each of the opposition parties were determined to bring down the government, and this was a convenient way to do so only days before there would have been a vote on the budget. The information was provided. It was provided, and like a dog that finally caught the car, the dog caught the car and then didn't know what to do with it. The information was there. Let's talk about the Democratic Representation Act, an act that was killed by this election, an act that was destined to give British Columbia more seats in the House of Commons. It died. There is the Senate Reform Act. Well, the Liberal senators have consistently frustrated an attempt by Stephen Harper and our Conservative government to limit senators' terms to 8 years. The Prime Minister has said he will appoint only senators who are elected by their provinces if provinces go along with that, and Alberta has. Contempt of Parliament? I'd say it's contempt to not turn up for 70% of the votes. Wouldn't you?
Thank you. So we have 4 would be Liberal Party Canada, then 1-0 for us.
Man, you're asking a very serious question. Look at that. I mean, I don't think any of us need to go through the contempt thing. I mean, the reason why we're having an election is because of that. The Speaker made his ruling, the House of Commons, the People's House spoke, and here we are. 5 years of Stephen Harper, and you're absolutely right. I mean, partisanship aside, you take a look at it objectively, and there has been a corrosive impact on our national democratic institutions. He shut down Parliament twice. Someone disagrees with him, arm's length agency, officers of Parliament, they treat them like idiots, they fire them. He wasn't supposed to name any senators. You've had the biggest orgy of Senate appointments in the history of Canada. You've had...
Are you listening, John?
The reason why I've run for the first time for public office is that we have to take our democracy back. You're absolutely right. It's not healthy. It's eroding. The more we accept the status quo and check out because we're cynical, the more it will continue. That's why we have to vote. You could vote for, obviously we'd like you to vote for us, but if you don't want to, that's okay too. But you have to vote. 50% of the people in this city didn't vote last time. That's too high. We have a responsibility. Vote for who you want to, but participate. It's too critical. If not, you leave Stephen Harper there for another 4 years. Canada can't afford that.
We Canadians have a choice this election. On the one hand, you got a small group of people who have an agenda worldwide to lend money out and gain compound interest, and that's just a small group. On the other hand, people can have a vote in a democracy, but you know what? You can't have both. It has to be one or the other. A democracy comes from grassroots, comes from the people. It's directed by the people. It's what the people want. The politicians listen and carry forth what the people want. Presently in Canada, we have a $580 billion national debt. Last year, $33 billion was paid out on interest to service it. That $33 billion should have gone to Canadians. So we have money left over for child care and for health care and for non-compound interest for buying homes. It's all there, people. Go to our website.
Thank you.
No, not finished yet. Let's take Kinder Morgan, the pipeline people from Houston. They came in to Vancouver Broad Inlet. They decided to ship 2 super tankers out, 2 per week. Did they ask? No, they didn't. They just did it under the watchful eye of the Conservatives. And before them, I don't know who it was, but the politicians who are in the area, they know what those tankers are all about. They obviously approve them. Why didn't we get to vote on it? That's what a democracy is. You can't have a democracy when you've got people like Kinder Morgan coming in and threatening our pristine coast and getting away with it. Thank you very much.
We finish up with Dan Meany on this. Have you spoken already? Oh, sorry, Roger. Roger Ramsey.
Thank you. Questions about contempt of Parliament. And I think the current government, or the past government, has really held us all in contempt by not telling us how much these wars are costing, both in funds and in civilian casualties. And there's a reason why they aren't telling us. Because if we knew, we wouldn't support the war. So it would be a factor in making it very difficult for them to continue this war. These wars now. I started to talk about this book by Professor William Blum, a former CIA man who worked for the CIA. This is the kind of things he did. They would go into countries and start fights and then weaken the government and foment civil war. And just like what they're doing in Libya, they send in covert forces, start a war, and they say, look, we have to go in there and help these people. And then they start bombing with depleted uranium munitions. These are very toxic munitions, and they're going to come back to us, to haunt us. The way they make war is by lying to us. And this is one of the things that General Smedley Darlington Butler said. If you want to stop war, 3 things you need to do. Number 1, you have to keep your military in your country, defending your borders, not attacking other countries. That's number 1. Number 2, he said, if you want to stop wars, you have to give a vote to the young people that are going to fight those wars. Those decisions shouldn't be made by a bunch of people in Ottawa. It should be made by the people who are going to fight the war. And the third thing he said, that if there is a war, let no one in the entire country, during the course of that war, let no one make a greater income than the soldier in the trenches.
Yeah.
And he said, if you have those 3 conditions in place, you won't have many wars, and if you do have a war, it won't last very long.
Thank you, Roger.